Welcome. Today, I want to introduce you to my dear friend, Dr. Mary Barbera. I have known Mary for so long. She says it's 2018, but I feel like it's longer, One of those friendships where you feel like, no, 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 I've known you for more than 5 years. I feel like I've known you for 10, but I think I've known her in reality since 2016. But, anyways, Mary is a mom. She's a very loving mom of two handsome boys, Lucas and Spencer. And one of his sons was diagnosed with autism, and she's going to share the story in the podcast. You're going to hear all about that today. But one thing that really strives me about Mary and strikes me about Mary is her love and ability and consistency in wanting to change the world, in wanting to really move forward with her message. Like when Mary says something and says, "This is what I'm going to do," she really follows through. She really is good at follow through and consistency. And I've seen her over the years. She started like a TikTok channel, and you're thinking, okay, she's just going to start a TikTok channel like all of us. But because of her consistency and the quality of work she puts out and she brings out there, she ends up having such amazing and massive results. And if you don't follow her on any social media platforms, right after listening to this podcast, I want you to go follow her on social media platforms because there's so much to learn from Mary. Literally, my marketing person basically follows her and just sees what she does. She is very talented, she is very consistent, and she's very innovative. And I really have enjoyed watching her and watching how she takes an idea and puts it into action and just flies with it. And everything just seems to blow up for her. Like her TikTok video blows up. And that's not by accident, it's because she puts in the work. She puts in the work. And if there's anything you're going to take out of today, is how much you need to put in the work for you to succeed in any business. Because she's in a small niche. I mean, there's lots of people who are autistic, but technically, she is in a very small niche compared to people who are in the marketing world. But she has successfully done it and turned this business around to a seven-figure business just by being consistent. So I'm sure you will enjoy listening to Mary Barbera and you will realize the reason why she is one of my best friends. Mary Barbera, how are you today?
I am great, Thembi.
So excited to have my BFF, my business BFF on the podcast. I've never interviewed her, so it's exciting to have you around. How was your trip? I just saw you a few days ago in our mastermind. How was your trip back home?
My trip back home was great. I got a lot of thoughts down on paper and outlined some new programs and a challenge. And so I was very productive on the way home.
Wow, good for you. I slept, although I haven't even looked at work. This is kind of like the first time I'm going back to work because I'm still like jet lagged, zoned out, not even staying in my house. I'm kind of just all over the place. But yeah, anyways. So
you have Mary, a lot farther of a travel than I do.
Yes.
I'm only coming from Pennsylvania. So I really take
true,
my hat off to people that like you who come from across the world to meet. So it's exciting. We've known each other for like 5 years now. And
it feels like forever.
Yeah.
yeah, we've known each other. Did we know each other 5 years? It feels longer, Mary. It feels like we've known each other forever. Maybe it's because we talk to each other all the time. Yeah. But anyways, I know Mary. So usually when we start this podcast, we talk about what's your morning routine. Mary has no morning routine. She has a seven-figure business and no morning routine. Can you just tell our audience what's up with that?
I mean, I get out of bed. That's my morning routine. Now, I have done over the years, I've tried to do the 5-minute journaling and, the morning miracle. And I've tried different things over the years, like years ago. But for me, I like to sleep in as late as possible. And then if I don't set an alarm, I could like literally sleep for many, many hours. And I think part of the reason I don't have a morning routine that I follow with journaling and meditation and all that is because I have a son with autism. And And he's 26 years old now. So, but over the years, it's been a lot to manage his care and his needs. And, he doesn't go to school now. And like my life keeps changing. But even if you have a typical child or two children, I have another son too, different because I have, the responsibility and just the oversight. Like now he has people coming into our house to take care of him. And so I don't know, maybe that's just a big excuse, but I don't find me needing a morning routine or even an evening routine. Like I sleep well. I wind down even though I use electronics up until the minute I fall asleep. It's just one of those things that just never got into.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think it goes to show that there's really no set formula on how to do business. Because, it's surprising to me, like the things you get achieved. You're my friend, of course, I'll be biased here, but you get so much achieved. How do you do this? You've got a best-selling book, you've got a podcast, you've got over 140,000 YouTube followers. Like you have a lot of things that you have achieved even without a routine. So that's working for you. Mary teaches other people how to help children with autism. It's because your son Lucas was autistic. You found out your son Lucas was autistic. But Mary, you could have, like other parents, gone down there, done your research, discovered all these things which you share right now with other people, and just kept them to yourself. What was the reason for you going out there and spreading this message?
Yeah, so Lucas started showing signs of autism. This is back in the 1990s. I had two sons back to back, Lucas, and then Spencer came almost 18 months later. At the time, I had a master's degree in nursing administration. I'm married to a physician, very, medical mindset, and had two kids back to back. And then Lucas started regressing and showing signs of autism, but I didn't see it. I didn't notice. He's my first son. Okay, he's a little bit more picky. He's not sleeping well. He was actually really early with like saying hi to people at like 7 or 8 months and would do little sing-songy things. Like people at play dates would go home and be like, oh my God, Lucas Barbera is like so advanced, so like that was confusing. And then he stopped doing that, but I was pregnant. So it's like, okay, maybe it's a phase. You just don't know, especially when you have your first child. So anyway, my husband first mentioned the possibility of autism when Lucas was 21 months old. Nowadays, you get screened at the pediatrician. Autism is all over the place. Autism rate is about 1 in 40. So now it's like everybody knows somebody with autism, but back then it was 1 in 500. There was no social media. There was barely the internet. So you can imagine that it wasn't talked about, especially the signs of early autism. And so at 21 months, when Charlie mentioned it, I told him it wasn't autism. He was crazy. And I never, ever wanted to hear the word autism again. And so went into a really deep state of denial. And he didn't get diagnosed and start treatment until about 39 months, from 21 months to 39 months. And that is like such a critical window. Now I'm not just a registered nurse, I'm a behavior analyst, and I earned a PhD in leadership in 2011. I wrote 2 books. And my goal is to help kids with autism and toddlers showing signs, because the same techniques that we use, child-friendly, positive techniques to empower parents to help kids showing the earliest signs of autism. Because not only is autism happening in about 1 in 40 kids, but 1 in every 6 children has some kind of developmental delay or disorder, including attention deficit disorder or speech delays or learning disabilities. And all of these things can be treated kind of the same way. And so as soon as kids get off track, you're a nurse too, Thembi. So you know, like that critical first hour after having a stroke, or the first year after a stroke or head injury, for instance. Those are critical times when your brain is what they call more plastic, so more changeable. I really believe that if I would know what I know now back then, I mean, nobody knew what I know now back then, but if I did, Lucas would have a very different life. So now, so that's what my big why is, getting the message out, especially to parents of kids 1 to 5 who are starting to show signs of potential autism. Maybe it's going to be a speech delay. Maybe it's a strep infection that's causing, something. Maybe it's, COVID threw a huge wrench into things, all of a sudden parents are trying to work from home and their kids are watching too much screens. Daycare's closed. There's no structure. Like, things can start to look pretty bad pretty quickly, even with typically developing kids. So my goal is really to get the message out to change the trajectory of kids' lives.
And were you always entrepreneurial, or how did this whole entrepreneurship journey end up becoming? Because as I said, you could have just been speaking and just sharing the message to the world, but it sounds to me like you're more of an entrepreneur than just a speaker.
Right. So I have a master's degree in nursing administration from the University of Penn. I was always like a manager, leader, like I published and presented in the nursing field. Like I was like, this shift to shift report, like the 7 to 3 shift, giving report to the 3 to 11 shift, that doesn't make sense. There's a lot of downtime, a lot of overtime, and patients are falling, nurses are, So I reinvented the whole shift to shift report for Thomas Jefferson Hospital, and it went hospital wide. I was always a behavior analyst, even though I didn't know what that was. It's the science of changing behavior. So there's a whole field of behavior analysis called organization behavior management. It's basically a scientific process of changing behavior. You assess, you make a plan, you implement, and you evaluate. So I always had that entrepreneur within me, but no, I was a registered nurse. Then I had my kids. Then I wrote a book. I became a behavior analyst, wrote a book. My first book's published in 2007, is in 17 languages, traveled around the world speaking on autism, kept thinking like, oh, maybe if I get a PhD, people will listen to me. And so it was really starting to know that I needed to get my message online to spread it, because I feel like I'm running out of time. This is a big movement that I need to share. So it was really starting to read Jeff Walker's book launch and implementing with the $20 book, implementing an online course, and just taking it from there. But yeah, now I am a full-time online entrepreneur. That's what I do all day long. I have a podcast. Like you said, I have 140,000 subscribers on YouTube. I have 1 million downloads on my podcast that I started 4 years ago. I have a full-time team member and then several contractors. But yeah, I just want to spread the word.
That's amazing. How did your husband feel when you said, I'm leaving a paid job to go start something online?
Well, I never left a paid job because I was on maternity leave. I had my kids back to back, and I was thinking I would go back into the nursing field and get a PhD and become a researcher and writer and speaker in nursing. So I just changed my topic. But yeah, in the beginning, he would say, oh, Mary just dabbles. And in a way, he was kind of right, because luckily for me, he has a stable income and benefits. And so I was able to figure it out. I was a one-to-one consultant, worked for a grant. So when I became a behavior analyst, I was a contractor, and I was making good money hourly to do that. And then when I started my online course, about half of my income would come as being a contractor, and then half would come from online. And then I just got rid of all my clients and moved all online. So he doesn't say I dabble anymore, but he did for a long time.
Yeah, because I think that's the hardest part, like for people who are starting business, and most of the audience here is women. If you're married and thinking, oh my goodness, I have to start this, and am I ever going to break through, and how is it going to work, and what does my family think, what does my partner think? But in your case, Mary, you have been successful. As we all know, we look up to you in the mastermind. you are the leader. You've got, I don't know how many followers on TikTok now. Like it keeps like it increases every day by 1,000 or something. But you have bunch of TikTok followers. Instagram is blowing up. Like everything in your life is blowing up. What is that marketing strategy that you can look back and say, this is what I did, this is what really helped me and has most rewarded me in the business?
Yeah, I think one of the keys to my success, and I've been at this selling online since 2015 when I read Jeff Walker's book. I joined the mastermind. Well, I joined Launch Club in 2016. And so I think a couple things. I've invested in masterminds. I've invested a lot of money to learn. I invested in courses. I built a video studio in my house. I took a course how to do that, took a course how to do webinars, took a course how to do podcasts. So investing in learning and a team as much as possible. And then the other big thing I think that I'm good at that a lot of people are not as good at is consistency. And I knew that if I said I was going to do a podcast, I bought Pat Flynn's course on podcasting and I sat with it. I didn't watch it for like 9 months or a year. And then when I was like, I'm going to do a podcast, then I binged watched it, made notes, got my logo, got my description, pulled the trigger. And it was like, okay, January 22nd, I'm going to start. It's going to be every week. Because what I would see when I would investigate, like as autism podcasts, there were a lot that started but stopped. And just the consistency was not there. So now we're 4 years, every Tuesday, like clockwork. But that means I have to be a month ahead for my team. So consistency, like deciding to go on TikTok, I was not really into it. And I was really not into it with me using my phone and posting myself because I have a team and I'm on a mission for higher things, really to blow this up. I don't have time. I don't want to be doing these little tasks. So when I started TikTok in May, we came up with a system where my assistant comes physically to my house and we shoot 50 short videos on her phone, very, very important, on her phone. So she's got the footage. She takes the footage, she puts it on Google, and then other contractors can pluck that out, put it on TikTok, test out hashtags and graphics and all kinds of things. And we use the same short form videos on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and Facebook. And our ad guy is now using those things for ads as well. So now we are posting consistently once a day on all those platforms. So it's not by chance. It's like millions and millions of people are affected and need this information. So I'm always striving for more. Like, how can I 10x the business?
I like that you said consistency because, yeah, I have seen you in this journey. Like, you never give up. Like, you keep going and going and going, even if it's not really producing results at first, but then eventually it just explodes. And then you're like, oh my goodness, I have all these followers. And you're passionate about things which you really want to follow. So did you ever feel like giving up?
Not really in the online space. I don't like a ton of stress. I like to sleep 8 hours a night. So I think because of that, I don't get into a point where I'm stressed to the point where I don't like my business. And that's, some good advice is like, don't create a business that you hate. So sometimes if you have people giving you advice about doing something that doesn't feel totally in line with your mission or what you want to do, like, yeah, I could probably make money if I just charged people, 10 people, $20,000 a year to have a mastermind or whatever. But I don't want to just help 10 people and make money. I want to help 10 million people. And so I know it's easier to do high end, but I'm not really in it for easy.
Yeah. Yeah. You've said that at one point, I remember you sharing this, that you wanted to empower what you turn autism around for 1 million affected kids. That number changed to 10 million, right?
Actually, it was 2 million by 2020.
2 million. Yeah.
By 2020. So now we're at 2023. For some reason, at some visualization thing, I now am on 50 million by 2025. But that's not 50 million taking my courses, which would be the best way that I could help people turn things around. That's just views and, contacts, and it's hard to measure too. Like, I have millions and millions of views on YouTube now. So I don't get too caught up in the numbers. I mean, it's always nice to have big goals, and we'll see where it goes. It's just like put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Let's talk about that visualization though. Like you said, you took a visualization process and all of a sudden you're now at 50 million. Can you just tell me about that?
Well, it was actually at a Jeff Walker event. And that's where I kind of got the 2 million. And then that was like in 2017. So then I kind of massaged that into 2 million by 2020. And even back then, I asked Jeff and I asked other leaders, like, how do I even measure that? And it's hard to measure, especially when you're talking about reach and impressions and clicks and views. And most people, like entrepreneurs, like to measure things in terms of money, and you need money to for your mission. One of the very first books I read was Brendon Burchard, The Millionaire Messenger. And it's a great book. And it really just points out that you really need a lot of money to operate and to spread this. Even, my podcast, I mean, we have a podcast company. There's several members of my team, my time to interview, just the capabilities, the email systems, it does cost a lot. So when I know your question's on visualization, but when people are like, oh, well, that's too expensive, or, I'm not competing with people who are like, oh, it's $9 a credit. Like, I'm trying to get the word out. But visualization, this was at another visualization eyes where it's kind of like meditation, and somebody leads you and you look far to the right and you see numbers or visions. I know you've probably done that, Thembi, where you've seen visions.
Yeah, I have. I have. Yeah. You have a mentor, obviously the same mentor I have, Jeff Walker. Do you have any other mentors?
I have a couple mentors in the field of behavior analysis that I've, the PhD doctor who wrote the foreword for my first book. And, I've interviewed him for my podcast. I've had a couple mentors in the ABA field. And then I'd say, in addition to Jeff Walker, I follow Pat Flynn pretty closely and Amy Porterfield. In the past, I followed Amy because I really like her. I like her stuff. I like her podcast. I like her landing pages. I like her tone. I've seen her live. Jason Friedman has been a big mentor of mine. So yeah, like those sorts of people, I'd say, are my main mentors.
Yeah. And I know that in marketing, I nicknamed you at one time. I don't know if you ever had this nickname, but the lazy marketer, because me and our mutual friend Elliot, who used to say, Mary doesn't do anything. She just sleeps and $1 million comes in. But she does do a lot of work behind the scenes, but not as much as some of us do. That's, to be honest. You do have a process it's called the evergreen, where basically money ka-ching, 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 every time, all the time. It was that like your breakthrough, which was like, this is my thing. This is really the thing for me.
So my business is run almost exclusively on evergreen, which means that any minute of any day, people can go and do a free webinar, and then they get the offer to join my online course and community. I actually, just with Jeff's book and like Amy Porterfield stuff and Brendon Burchard stuff, I actually launched my program in March of 2015. with cohort 1 and did a seed launch, and then cohort 2 and cohort 3. And I was really ready to go with Evergreen, maybe even started it. But LaunchCon, one of the reasons I went to LaunchCon in 2016 and joined Launch Club is because they were talking about Evergreen. So I didn't create Evergreen, but I do think that over the years, I have more experience with Evergreen than pretty much anybody I know. But I didn't do it to make money. I'm trying to get the word out, right? So especially parents of little kids who have signs of autism. So that's happening all day long, all over the world, right? Because I have people from almost 100 countries who purchased my online courses. So to meet the needs, my business would never be appropriate to launch once a quarter or once a year. There would be too much need. So that's why I do Evergreen. Is it perfect? No. I mean, right now I created a new assessment and it's a digital. I paid a lot of money to a software company to launch this software product as a free assessment. So right now, my problem, quote unquote, is 10,000 or more new leads a month, but my sales aren't going up. So now it's, coming up with getting the conversions up to my courses, which is really the best path. And also maybe coming up with something lower cost that people would feel comfortable, because, I complain about people staying in the quote unquote sea of free, yet I produce so much free information. So I do a lot of work. I do a lot of higher level work, like outlining, I'm starting a Train the Trainer program this spring, which I've been sitting on for a couple of years. It's going to happen. It's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be high priced. It's going to be people that have already been following me for years, been paying me at a lower rate for years, who can help me figure out a Train the Trainer program. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for Evergreen for most markets. Like, people are like, well, I'm in the piano market or I'm in the knitting market and we don't need Evergreen. But like during COVID, I wanted to learn to play the piano. I took a piano course. People want to learn what they want to learn when they want to do it, not twice a year. Evergreen is worth figuring out.
Yeah, it's the convenience. How amazing that you've managed to do that in such a small niche. Like, it's not like, yes, it is a big niche, but when people think of making money, they're thinking of selling courses to make money. They don't think of turning autism around. And when they think of bestseller, they're thinking of motivational, rara books. They don't think of 10 autism around books being a bestseller. So congratulations on that achievement. What is your favorite quote, Mary?
My favorite quote? I would say better done than perfect.
That's interesting, coming from someone who's been sitting for 3 years on a course.
Yeah. But again, I have been producing podcasts and videos and TikTok. Like, you can't start everything at the same time. Otherwise, you get too stressed out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what are the 3 things you could share right now as a piece of parting guidance for somebody, maybe an entrepreneur who's been trying, maybe they've done everything in their capacity anyways, and they're still not breaking through? What 3 things would you share with them?
I would say the book launch really helped me, like, really see kind of step by step how to do a seed launch, which a seed launch is what I'm going to do for my Train the Trainer. It's what I did for my other courses. And it's basically like to say, hey, I'm thinking about an idea. I'm putting the finishing touches on my XYZ course. And what are the top 2 or 3 things that I shouldn't forget to include, or what questions do you have about it? And that kind of gets the ball rolling. And then say, okay, I'm gonna start this beta test course or this, very small group course. that is going to help you build it. I think there's way too much build it and then hope that they come. And I think if you include people, it doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be 10 people, 20 people paying you a little bit of money and helping you create something that's going to be a product. I mean, when we created, so I have 2 courses right now. I have the toddler preschooler course, which is where I make the most and it's most passionate about, because it's, again, that 1 to 5-year-old crowd. And when I created that, I just did, every week I did a live lecture, question and answer period. I sold that on Evergreen, those live recordings with questions, not their questions, I sold that as is for another year or 2 on Evergreen. And then I, pared it down and made it more evergreen and really tightened it up. So I would definitely look into trying to launch something. And Jeff Walker also said, like, you go from 1 to 1. So if you're listening and you haven't even helped one person with whatever niche you're on, even volunteering and saying, hey, Susie Q, you seem like you're somebody I could help. Can I coach you for free for 3 times? Or can I come over? Like, I used to have kids come over to my basement for video permission. And then I would help them initially, like, help one person, go from 1 to 1 to 1 to small group, and then from 1, then do a course. So I think people think like, oh, I have to do a course. It's like, help one person, even for free, then a small group, and then a course.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds great. Like, I hope this is helpful for our listeners. Like, you don't have to go all in one. You can just go step by step. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mary, for being here. This has been amazing. And what a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Thembi. See you soon.
Okay. And also, where can our listeners go to? turnautismaround.com or marybarbera.com, right?
Either one. marybarbera.com is my website. Turnautismaround.com will take you to my book resource page where you can read the first chapter of my book and get all the book resources. And then the other thing, if you're running or you're, listening where you don't have a pen and you can't remember, just Google, or have people that Google Mary autism plus whatever you're struggling with. And I probably have a podcast, a video, or something to help you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that tip.